I'm happy with Legal Match. I was in I don't know if I'm in a unique position, but I didn't form my practice prior to the pandemic. So I didn't have an existing practice prior to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, I was working in insurance fraud in commercial litigation for a firm. Legal Match is invaluable because gone are the days, the good old days, where your clients could walk into your office or you would see people at court. You'd be able to communicate with people at court, the general public, people that run businesses, and a lot of in-person networking events have diminished. Legal Match has now become invaluable because of that. When people need to find an attorney, there's a lot of disinformation out there. And Legal Match is an invaluable tool to allow potential clients to find a credible attorney to represent them, to meet their needs. Because when they post their problem on Legal Match, if an attorney can filter it and understand that is a potential case for them, they will then contact the client. And it's done in a manner where the attorney contacting the client is private. It's not known who has contacted the client by other attorneys in this competitive market. And that's important because when other attorneys are aware of what you've communicated to potential clients, they try and distort information in a competitive environment. Legal Match gets rid of that. So you can have more than one attorney contact you if they believe their skill set is suitable for your matter. They can do it in a confidential manner. They can do it in a private manner. And this enables you to consider which best attorney is more appropriate for the kind of legal problem that you have. And so that's why I must commend Legal Match. And like I said, it's an invaluable tool, especially during the pandemic, because it's one of the only ways for people where there's a lot of disinformation out there. There's a lot of false information about law firms and attorneys, and you can't necessarily believe what you read on an attorney's profile. So when you're trying to look for a suitable attorney in that environment, Legal Match is invaluable to try to match you with the right attorney that is in an honest and credible way. Look, it's positively impacted my business because it has brought me in closer contact with members of the community, with owners of businesses, with property managers. It simply brings me in touch with different people from all walks of life, where I don't have an opportunity to meet them face to face or physically network with them elsewhere. So, and unfortunately, some things you have to learn once you actually practice and do it, and then to change things, to make them better. So there's that. Also with resources, with electronic resources, particularly during COVID and coming out of COVID. Now, if you're more of a traditional lawyer, that's harder because you're not necessarily technology savvy, to keep up with the progress in technology as a result of the pandemic, where, now a lot of your court appearances are through Microsoft Teams, and, your website has to be out there more. All of your electronic forms of communication have to be accessible. They have to be at your potential clients' fingertips. And if you're using providers that aren't reputable and that aren't getting your information out there quick enough, or in a way where potential clients can see it, that can be a problem. So that was a challenge that I had, where, I was more of a traditional lawyer that, all of my papers and everything were in paper, and I'd be physically in the courtroom each day. So a lot of those days are gone now, where we're having this semi-environment coming out of COVID. where you expect in the future to be in court, but then a lot's going to be done online. And a lot of your information has to be out there to potential clients and other members of the legal profession. So using the right software and the right service providers is essential. If you think that your service provider, say for your domain, for your business, or for your technology, or all of your technology needs isn't good enough, you need to do some research about what providers are reputable. And I'm in the process of doing that now. I think I've already answered it partly in that it provides a private way for me to assess what legal problems that are posted on there are suitable for my services. It gives me a private way of contacting that client and enabling the client then to discern different pieces of information that it gets. What I like about Legal Match is that they don't have a select rating system of attorneys. So an attorney with a unique background such as myself isn't discriminated against or isn't unfairly treated, whereas some other systems you are, because there's a rating system, and the rating system of attorneys may only recognise US qualifications and not experience from common law countries that are applicable here. But that's with other things as well. What I like about Legal Match is that it doesn't label the attorney. It enables them to put their services forward in how they can best serve potential clients that come onto Legal Match. And then it gives you a mechanism to speak to that potential client straight away. And that is brilliant, because then once you actually speak to the potential client, it's a lot different than them just reading information, which could be true or false on the internet. They then have personal contact with you straight away, and that is invaluable. That contact that you're able to get straight away means that that client will be able to have a much better idea of who they're dealing with, how you're thinking about their matter, how you're analysing their matter, and how you could potentially help them if you're the right attorney for their matter. So that's one thing I love about the support services, the way that whole thing works. Another thing I love is that you have an option, depending on the matter, to reveal your estimate of fees up front, or you can withhold that until you speak to the client and find out more information about the matter. So I really like that. Okay, that's something else I really love. There was another thing that I really liked. I forget now, but there was one other thing that I really liked. If it comes to mind, I will say it. But those things are invaluable for me. They make it very enjoyable for me to use it and be in contact with different members of the community. Usually once a month, but the leads I get tend to be long-term leads. Sometimes it could be once every 2 months. To me, that's effective in commercial litigation because these are matters that run for a long time. So it depends what area of law you're dealing with. If it's commercial litigation, a big matter once every 2 months or once every month is worth it. Some of these matters run for years. Most of them, because I tend to deal with complex matters in a cost-effective way. So if it's a matter above the 25,000 threshold in terms of the value of the matter, and they need complex advice, and they can't afford to pay a fortune in legal fees, they usually retain me. It's not comparable, in my opinion, because of the things I've already spoken about. The other services I've found just don't provide that. But another thing, and I've now remembered this, the other thing that I love that I've forgotten. Legal Match screens more clients as to whether or not they can afford legal fees. a lot of other services won't do that for you. So you still do get potential clients that come through that can only afford a small amount, or are looking for someone to do their matter on a contingency basis, or are looking for somebody pro bono. But the bulk of them have been filtered, and they tend to be people that can either afford legal fees now or into the future. So that was another thing that I loved about Legal Match that I forgot to mention before. So that factor, in addition to everything else that I've spoken about, that's what makes Legal Match much more beneficial than other services, other providers that fall into its category. It's very integral that when you see a problem, that you drop everything if you can. That's not possible all the time, but when you can, and respond to it straight away. Respond to it straight away, because once you respond to it, then most of the time the client's contact details come up, and then you can call them straight away and speak to them. And it's when you speak to them for the first time that potential clients really appreciate it. And 9 times out of 10, if you're the first person speaking to them and they spend a while with you and they like you, they really won't worry with other people that may contact them. And I know that that's a bit competitive, but it balances out, okay? Because you're not going to be able to respond straight away all the time. So most matters you'll get, but the ones that you won't be able to respond to straight at a time, they may go to a different attorney. So it balances out. But that's how to get the most out of it. Whenever you see a problem that you believe is suitable for your services, not every problem you'll see will be suitable. And then you've got the discretion, you've got the option to simply just ignore that matter and focus on the ones that do suit your services. And that other problem may be suitable for another attorney, okay, that has a different kind of practice to you. So it all balances out, but that's how you get the most out of it. When you see a problem that's suitable for your practice, you've got to really contact the person straight away. Don't focus too much on scheduling. My advice for people starting out is that, number one, respond straight away in writing so you can get the person's contact details. It doesn't really, if you can tailor the small amount that you write in the box, in the reply message to their legal problem, that looks better, because it gives the client an idea that you've thought about their problem and it's not just some standard text that you've put there. So you respond in that manner and then call them straight away. Call them before you schedule a consultation time. Sometimes they'll put forward consultation times. Call the client straight away. That's the integral part before you do anything else. And then the best way to schedule a consultation time with them is actually over the phone. But look, if you can't get through to them, or sometimes this doesn't happen often, but sometimes they don't disclose their contact information. If that's the case, then you have no choice but to wait for them to contact you. But for attorneys starting out with Legal Match, look, contact over the phone. Try to speak to the potential client straight away. That is the most important thing. Think about your areas of practice or your one area, your one specialty, and think about how you can use Legal Match to provide services in that specialty. Each area of law will be different. So the way you use Legal Match may be potentially different in terms of how you filter those matters for your specialty. So an area like family law, for example, you're going to use a different filtering system. And when I mean system, I meant different mental process as to how you filter the matters for that specialty than commercial litigation. which is going to be a different mental process as to how certain matters will be suitable for you. So think about your area, think about the availability of Legal Match to meet your specialty or specialties. Okay, it's a more, you can have more than one area of practice. Okay, you can have a couple. If you have more than one area of practice, think about how those two areas are compatible in terms of how you're going to use Legal Match. That's important, because you don't want one area interfering. You want to get the most out of your Legal Match membership. So if you have more than one area, if you have, say, business transactions and intellectual property, for example, make sure that they complement each other. Sometimes the areas may be more conflicting, like business transactions or business litigation and family law. Think about in terms of how you provide your services. Make sure that the two areas don't conflict with each other, that they complement each other, so it doesn't adversely affect you. That's if you've got more than one area, and that's getting a little bit more complex. But if you've just got the one area, everything that I've spoken about, if you do all of those things, I think when I first signed up to Legal Match, they said to me, you get what you pay for. And that's exactly right. With Legal Match, you get what you pay for. Your performance, a lot of the times, is your greatest tool for marketing. I know that that's a bit old-fashioned for me to say, but at the end of the day, where there's so much false information out there or misleading information out there on the internet, members of the community really are looking for performance. So your very first interaction with that client and showing your kind of performance and how you're dealing with their legal problem from your very first communication with them is essential. And that's the greatest marketing tool in this world of disinformation. They know from speaking to you and how you're already thinking of the legal issues in their matter and how it applies to them from the outset. They know, wow, we've got someone good here to help us, and they'll most likely retain you. That's the best way to market yourself, is to get your performance skills out there to that client straight away. And that's why I say try and speak to the client, as potential client, as soon as you can to do that.